Welcome back to the True Crime Lounge podcast here on Spotify and YouTube. Here on St. Patrick's Day. I have a Patreon that you can go and join for early access to episodes scheduled to come out. I also have a merch shop that you can go check out as well. For any updates on my channel or podcast, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, I meant to say Twitter. I don't know why I said YouTube. Now, let's dive into today's episode, shall we? Today's case I first came across when I was watching Lifetime. And that case happened to be Erin Corwyn. Um, as always, please remember that before you comment something mean that there are families out there still grieving for the victims. Um, how did a love triangle turn deadly? What was Erin? Why was Erin Corwyn's life taken only at 19? Well, let's dive into who Erin was to begin with. Erin was born in Oak Ridge, Tennessee as Erin Heavilin. She was an animal lover with a talent of taming horses that were untamable. She would meet her future husband, John, in the fifth grade, and on her 16th birthday, he would ask her parents for permission first. Oh, that's okay. That is a very gentlemanlike thing to do. I'm sorry. That's like the hopeless romantic in me coming out on that one. Um, as they fell in love, she wrote him poems, and the couple had a fairy tale romance. John would join the Marines, and the couple would marry in 2012. Their look, their future looked promising, but when they moved to the John's Marine Base in Twentynine Palms, California, in September 2013, they would meet a monster disguised as a friend. This friendship would cost Erin her life, and as Shauna Hogan reveals in her new book, Secrets of a Marine's Wife. So, Connor and Aisling Malaki lived downstairs from the Currents with their infant son Brian. Chris and Nicole Lee lived with their 6-year-old daughter Liberty lived next door. Um, and while their husbands were on duty, Aisling and Nicole would stop by each other's apartments for snacks and gossip. John Carter and Chris, when they were home, they would the couples would barbecue and grill outside their complex and watch movies and TV shows at each other's apartments. So while all seemed normal at first, one of the new friends was a mess of red flags. Erin Heavilin was just 18 when she married John in Las Vegas. And at first, Chris appeared to be a well suited in uniform, but other Marines noticed he seemed preoccupied with weapons. And at least once he was recommended by his commanding officer by using the rifle and the rocket launchers while, like they were toys. Over time, Chris would gain a reputation for being rash and reckless. The Corans weren't prepared for the challenges that they would be facing as newlyweds. They were often fighting about money and accusing each other of overspending. But when Erin got pregnant, she was delighted. Something announcing it with blue and pink post on Facebook, which made it devastating when she miscarried several weeks later. Now, this took a further toll on their marriage. Erin withdrew socially, growing emotionally distant from her husband, whom didn't know how to comfort his own wife. Erin's, f- Erin's fate would catch the attention of Chris Lee, their neighbor next door to them. Chris had been observing Erin when they hung out and noticed a sorrow in her face and mirrored his own sadness. He started spending more time with her without Nicole around, and one Sunday night, February 2014, the Lees joined the Corns at their apartment, and John and Nicole watched the episode of The Walking Dead when Erin didn't watch due to the violence. But instead of joining his wife, Chris played video games with Erin in John's bedroom. Chris and Erin were alone, seated on the floor beside each other playing the game. And suddenly one of them paused the game and Erin glanced in his direction. The pair started kissing, and while it only lasted for a few seconds, that kiss would change everything. and would begin their affair. The affair would become intense quickly. Soon the pair was discovered leaving their spouse and were discussing leaving their spouse with and what a great stepmother Erin would be to Liberty, whom she frequently babysat. Um, but Nicole could sense how distant Chris had become, and she would check her husband's phone and saw a text from Erin saying, "You're gorgeous. I think I'm falling for you." And Nicole confronted her husband in an hours long tirade and informed John of the affair in front of the others during one long angry night. As Erin turned to leave, Nicole stormed after her, her eyes flashing with anger as she shoved Erin's finger in her face. And she was also going to tell her, scream at her, "If you ever have anything else to do with my husband, I'll kill you myself." Erin and Chris briefly called off their affair, but several weeks later were again sneaking off together. Chris's time in the Marines were due to end on July 4th, 2014. After which he, Nicole, and Liberty were scheduled to return to their home state of Alaska. On June 22nd, Erin was pregnant again. This time, she didn't announce it on social media. The following week, on June 28th, Chris planned a trip to Joshua Tree National Park with Connor to hunt coyotes, bringing along his .22 Winchester rifle. He had a propane tank he had to explode using gasoline and rifles. In the park's many abandoned mine shafts, Connor canceled because he had friends staying over, so Chris went alone. By coincidence, Erin was also driving to Joshua Tree that day, supposedly to scout out places to bring her mom to for their upcoming visit. So what about the White Horse Rescue? Well, at around 7:30, Erin kissed John goodbye, told him she loved him for the final time, and left. She did not return home that night, answered none of her texts, and never was seen again. In the aftermath of her disappearance, the police had two jobs, one more difficult than the other. Accumulating evidence to prosecute her likely killer was the easy part. While Chris Lee and John Corwyn were initially both regarded as suspects, John was quickly ruled out. Chris, on the other hand, had motive, means he had an opportunity galore, and the evidence was stacked up against him. He was caught lying about the affair to the police, and an unusual garrote was found in his car. And he even had done Google searches about how to dispose of bodies. Here was the second task, and truly probably one of the hardest and most daunting ones that I could imagine doing. But it was finding her body that proved to be far more difficult. The search for Erin Corwyn's body was over 1,200 square miles in the wilderness and involved 6 different law enforcements and hundreds of volunteers. After several weeks of searching, they found nothing. The authorities made it even more difficult decision on Saturday, August 6th, and that search would end. Later that day, a caver noticed a strong gasoline smell coming from one of the mines. Inside was Erin's body. She had been choked to death with a homemade granite, and then dropped 250 feet down in the mine shaft. A propane tank was found with her, part of her unsuccessful effort to burn her body. Chris Lee was arrested for first-degree murder with a special circumstance of lying in wait. That's because Chris and Erin did meet at Joshua Tree that day, the day she went missing. Chris told her days before that he had a special surprise for her, and Erin thought it might even be marriage, a prospect that excited her. Instead, the man she loved lured her into Joshua Tree National Park and murdered her, choking her to death over 5 long agonizing minutes. At his trial, which began October 2016, the prosecution easily established Chris' affinity for violence and what his motive for opportunity for murder. The defense presented just one witness, Chris Lee, as he took the stand in his own defense, delivering desperate and dubious tale. Chris confessed to killing Erin, confirming all the evidence against him. But then he said that while speaking with Erin in the desert, about her desire to become Liberty's stepmother, he remembered something. One night after his wife had given Liberty a bath, she noticed that Nicole had found her daughter's crotch to be red and irritated. Nicole accused Erin of somewhat causing a suspicious rash. As he and his wife talked, Chris started to think about how Erin seemed too emotionally attached to the little girl, and that he claimed to turned a gear in his head. He asked, "Did she touch Liberty?" And according to him, she said, um, "Yes, but," and that was all he heard, and that Chris was lost control. He grabbed his garrote, screeched the life out of Erin, and a 10 by 10 foot mine shaft, where Erin's body was found. A little more than an anonymous, unmapped hole in the desert. The 10 by 10 mine shaft where Erin's body was found was a little more than anonymous. Unmapped in the desert, and a story of an attempt to be considered a charge for involuntary manslaughter, which likely would have resulted in a relatively short prison sentence, but the jurors did not believe him. I don't believe him. But I'm trying to be very unbiased here. I'm doing my best. Um, and they brought him a guilty first-degree verdict with special circumstances. It took them just 15 minutes to reach this verdict. Chris Lee was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Um, and besides the Richard J. Donovan Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. Erin's family, meanwhile, were to remember the good times they had with their daughter instead of focusing on the anger of the killer. Her mom said, "I decided I refused to be bitter and angry." Lord Heavilin, um, and she also goes on to say that he's already taken enough of me. If I'm bitter and angry, he's taken my mind, my soul and heart, and I'm not giving that to him. So where is Jonathan now? Where's Nicole now? Where is Chris now? Well, investigation discoveries 48 hours NCIS the Marines Rifles tell that explores the ins and outs of the 2014 disappearance of the murder case. The 19 so and it talks about the 19-year-old and 29 Palms Marines corpse and everything. So Jonathan Corwyn, um Jonathan Corwyn was from East Tennessee, like his late wife. He was a country loving man and through. And although he and Erin, when they were in middle school, they didn't begin dating until they was her 16th birthday. Until then, one year her senior asked his parents for permission and approval, and their relationship continued even as Jonathan decided to pursue a career in the U.S. Marines, and he ended up proposing to his sweetheart while still in high school. The couple married in November 2012 and relocated to his Marine base in Twentynine Palms, California in September 2013. As newlywed, they had a lot of ups, but unfortunately they had a few downs as well. She got pregnant and she miscarried. Just a few weeks later. Alright, so where is Jonathan now? Well, according to a 2016 Dateline interview, he was heartbroken this summer and recalled the last conversation he ever had with his loving wife. She had woken up and gotten dressed and given me a kiss goodbye. Um, he said, detailing and imagining what would be his final farewell. He said, "Hey, I'm heading out for the day and I love you." He said, "I love you too." And he rolled back into bed to sleep. He had tried to get in touch with Erin, but he could not get through. And she didn't even come home that night and reported her missing. Um, the United States Marines, Jonathan Corwyn, from what From what we know is that he is still serving his country, but most importantly, he has moved on with his life, and as per his last reports, although he now knows every aspect of what transpired between her and Chris, he is also trying to forgive the man he once considered a friend. Obviously, he hated their actions, and he took, but he feels like if I let him bring hatred to my mind, he's just gonna pull me down. So what about Nicole? I know she was a brief minor character in all of this, who accused her literally, probably out of jealousy. But Nicole resided with her husband, um, in the Marine base, and the couple shared a daughter, Liberty, who was 5 during the time of Aaron's murder. They were high school sweethearts, and their friend Michelle Herring describes her as Chris and Nicole were best friends as well as a couple. They were always interactive with each other, and they just got along so well. They had a wonderful marriage, and they were wonderful at each other. Chris and Nicole met Erin and her husband. Both couples were quick to spark a friendship, and Erin grew close to Nicole. Erin would even come over to babysit and look over after Liberty. However, things would turn as when Christopher started to get intimate with Erin. After the two allegedly began an affair that led to Erin's reported pregnancy, the murder, her body's remains were located for several weeks, during which time Christopher got discharged from duty. Along with Nicole and their daughter, he moved to Alaska where the law finally caught up with him. In that court, he mentioned that he valued his family and was scared that he would lose Nicole and his daughter because of the affair. Where is she now? Well, over the years, Nicole had to face numerous rumors and theories. Court documents even allege that Nicole was angry with her husband for not being able to lie his way out of a murder charge. The same document also alleged that Nicole told a friend that the police did not search their garage, that they were never find the victims, thus weakening the case. However, the allegations are uncorroborated, and the friend came out and said that Nicole um was talking about a different case. Interesting. Well, in court, Christopher mentioned that Nicole's found a rash light lying near her daughter's private, which led him to believe Erin was molesting his daughter, which he claimed was the only reason for the murder. Nicole's current whereabouts are currently unknown as she tries to keep off social media. She also prefers a veil of privacy that comes to her personal life, and we want to respect that. What about Christopher Lee now? What about him? Who was he to begin with? Well, he was a former Marine stationed at the Marines Court in California. With his family, and Erin next door as his neighbor, being almost 6 years older than the teenager, and her husband, married with a daughter of their own. That's just sick right there. I'm sorry. She was barely even an adult, and you were 6 years old. Anyway, but what Erin didn't realize that Chris had a reputation of being rash and reckless. So where is Chris now? Well, he took trial for first-degree murder with a special circumstance of lying in wait against him, he testified in his own defense. With a tale of apparent child abuse, um so he basically was sentenced to prison without life without parole. But that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day and a happy St. Patrick's Day as well.